Let's talk about it, yeah.
Talk about it.
I'm so in love, yeah.
Yeah.
And it feels good to be loved.
Every morning I wake up, you're the reason for my smile. Before I close my eyes, it's you I'm thinking about.
So that there may be a link established. You know I love words. The word link comes from the Greek light. So I'm connecting with God so the light of Jesus Christ may illuminate me so that I become the light of the world. Because Jesus is the light of the world, so that no matter where I go in the dark world, proverbially speaking, I demonstrate and shine and illuminate the light of Jesus Christ. Number two, I must connect with God so that I may have access and communication. Access and communication. Access and communication. If anybody's ever been to a VIP gathering, VIP event, and your name was on the list, they would say, "What's your name?" And you would recite your name, and after giving them your name, they would see on the list, "Oh yeah, come right this way, doctor, come right this way now. Your name's on the list." Access and communication, so that you may have a communicative prayer life with God, that you may hear God and God may hear you. Number three, we must connect with God so that we may have power. Somebody say power.
Power.
Power is your ability, so that I might be able. You remember what Paul says, for with Christ I'm able to do all things because God strengthens me. I can do all things because Christ strengthens me. So I must be connected to God so that I may have power. Power is dunamis in the Greek, which gives us our English word ability. So that I may do whatever God has commissioned and called me to do. So in 2015 and 16, when I'm connected with God, you're going to accomplish some unusual things. Listen to the man of God. I don't usually talk like this unless it's on me and in me. But prophetically, I'm going to say to you, you and I and you, we are going to do some unusual things, individually and corporately, in 2016 because of the power of God. So when you're linked, when you're connected with God, you have power. And finally, I'm going to connect with God for knowledge and understanding. Knowledge and understanding. Wisdom is knowledge guided by understanding. Understanding is meaning. Meaning is intent, and intent is why. So when you're walking with God and you're connected with God, the Word of God is going to feed you with knowledge and understanding out of the mouth of Pastor Vann, out of the mouth of prophetic preachers, out of the mouth of every preacher that you hear wherever you are that's preaching the Word of God. That's why you connect. One, that you may have a link that's established so God will affect you and you will have an effect on God. Number two, for access and communication. Number three, I'm connected with God for power. I need some power. And number four, and finally, I'm connected with God for knowledge and understanding, if you will. The Levites in Old Testament are the deacons in the New Testament. So they're the servants of the church. The word Levite in the Hebrew means joined. So watch this now. I am joined to God. I'm joined to God the Father. I'm joined to Jesus Christ, the Word of God. I'm joined to the power of God because of my connection. Remember now, the book of Leviticus thematically talks about two S's, sacrifice and sanctification. Because I told you now, the book of Leviticus is about worship. It's about worship. And more specifically, the book of Leviticus is giving us purity laws. Purity laws. I told you purity laws is to really shape the people of God that are coming out of Egypt through the wilderness with a divine destiny to go into Canaan, the promised land. Now, what's going to guide your footsteps as you're coming out of bondage, as you're going through preparation, as you're getting to the promise is the Word of God. You remember the psalmist. The word of God is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my pathway. The word of God now and forevermore is always going to do two things in your life. It's going to tell you where you are and tell you where you're going. When you're reading the word of God, it ought to illuminate your now. When you continue to reading the word of God, it ought to illuminate where you're going. So in 2016, because you're reading the word of God, you're going to know where to come and when to leave. Because the word of God illuminates. So watch this now. The word of God tells the people of God and is shaping the people of God. Dr. Luke Timothy Johnson, he's a New Testament scholar. He wrote the book New Testament and Interpretation. This book changed my theology while I was in seminary taking my master's. And in the epilogue, Dr. Luke Timothy Johnson, Dr. Timothy Luke Johnson, he talks about why the word of God, the letters, pastoral letters of Paul, and the church letters, if you will, were circulating amongst the people of God. Dr. Johnson says it is to bring about a synthesis and a homogenization so that whoever reads the word of God gets the same meaning. And when you read it and I read it, we start thinking the same. And so we come together because of the word, which draws you and draws me. So when I preach to you, you ought to get the meaning, and that brings us together. This is why I believe couples ought to worship together, especially if you're married. Because when you hear the word, it's going to bring you closer together. Now, let me tell you what ain't going to happen in the Vann house. She gonna roll over and say, now look, I don't feel like going to church. Now look at here, you got one Sunday to not feel like it. You look at here, because look at here, if you keep not feeling like it, look at here, you find you another church, and if you got another church and I ain't your pastor, then we don't really have a bond. See, in order what's going to bring my family together if we're praying together and reading the word together. Can I stop right there and tell somebody something? You shouldn't have to ever really invite folk to church. This ain't no party. This ain't no ball. This ain't no game. This ain't no social gathering. You shouldn't have to invite folk. Your life should be so that people want to follow you wherever you're going on Sunday. Preparation is, preparation. That's the first point you need to get in your spirit. Separation is, preparation. Why? How do you mean? What do you mean, Pastor Van? Look at the etymology of the term separation. Apart, and prepare, prepare. So when I'm separated, it's a compound of two words. I'm apart to prepare. Separation means God's pulled me apart from something to prepare me from something. Get it again. When I'm separated, that means God sets me apart to prepare. The word prepare means to make me ready in advance. So in order for me to get ready for my next, in order for me to get ready for the blessing, God's got to pull me away from some things and pull me away from some people. So separation is preparation. Holiness is about setting you and I apart and preparing you and I. In order to be like God, which is possible because our creation is in the likeness and the image of God, you and I have to be reconnected to God. Somebody out of connection. God is calling you and I out of the world so that we may be joined. Somebody say joined. With him. And holiness is a description. Oh, yes, it is. Holiness is a description of our connection with God. Holiness is a description of our connection with God. It bears repeating rather. Holiness is our connection with God. Holiness describes our connection with God. Because remember now, the word holy, two things. It means to be pure. It means to be clean. It means to be clean morally. It means I'm not doing what I used to do, even though I still want to do what I'm no longer doing. Number two, it means to be sacred. It means to be sacred. Sacred means to be set apart. And it means to be connected. It means to be. So holiness is a description of my connection with God. Holiness does not mean I'm better than you. Holiness does not mean I'm higher than you. Holiness does not mean I'm walking with Christ tighter than you. Holiness does not mean I ain't got to hang around you because you ain't like me. Holiness is separation so that I can get preparation, because separation means I'm getting closer to God. Holiness does not mean I got to leave you to be more like God. That's not necessarily true. But holiness describes my connection. Somebody ought to connect. Because of the word which I have spoken to you. Abide in me, and I in you, as the branch is not able to bear fruit of itself. If not, it abide in the vine, so neither can you if you're not abiding in me. I am the vine. You are the branches. He that remains, she that remains in me, and I in him, this one bears much fruit. For apart from me, you are not able to do anything. So look at me. Whatever you want to accomplish in 2016, even starting now, you've got to get connected. Look at somebody, tell them, get connected. Get connected. Verse 6, if not anyone abides in me, he is cast out as the branch and is dried out. And they gather and throw them into the fire, and they are burned. Finally, verse 7, if you abide in me, and my word abide in you, whatever you desire, you will ask, and it will happen to you.
Yes, sir.
So let me give you verse 1. Let me give you some insight. Look at verse 1. I am the vine, and my Father is the vine dresser. Get this in your spirit. Vine dresser etymologically means, watch this. It gives us the word vineyard. It is the sphere of action. So if you're in God and he's the vine dresser, that means you're in the vineyard. You're in the vineyard. And the vine dresser is in the vineyard, and the vineyard is the vine dresser. And the vineyard and the vine dresser, watch what it means. It is a sphere of action. It is the space of activity. So when you're in God, connected to God, that's how you move. When you're in God, connected to God, that's how you make progress. When you're in God, connected to God, that's how you're going to get promoted. That's how you're going to bear fruit. That's how you're going to be productive. So in order for you to make a move in the world, but not of the world, but in the world, you've got to get connected to God. And when you're connected to God, he's the vine dresser, and the vine dresser is the vineyard. And that's the space of your activity. Go slow. When Adam and Eve are in the garden, Adam and Eve are in spiritual perfection, because the word garden etymologically means place of growth. Place of growth, growing. So when you're in the garden, you're growing. When you're in the sphere of God's authority, you are growing. When you're connected to God, you are inevitably going to grow. So if you want to grow in 2016, you've got to get connected. Somebody holla, connected. When we are unified with Christ, when God is in us and we are in God, when God is the vine dresser, Jesus is the vine, and I am the branch. Or say it another way, my hand is in Christ's hand, Christ's hand is in the Father's hand, and no man can pluck us out. So watch this now. The first thing I'm going to be sure of is that I'm saved. And I'm in a relationship with God. No matter what I have to go through, and God knows 2015 was a doozy. For many folk, might even be some folk in this room. But it doesn't denote that you're not saved, because you're going through trial, trouble, and tribulation. Because trial, trouble, and tribulation is not a sign you're not connected or you're not saved. But trial, trouble, and tribulation is a very good positive sign that you are saved. Because if you're saved, you're connected to God. And whoever's connected to God, the devil doesn't like. And whoever the devil doesn't like, the devil tries to distract and destroy. So to distract you and destroy you, he's got to separate you. But the devil can't separate you if you're not first connected. So that's evidence I'm connected, because the devil wants to destroy me. So he'll use anything, anyone to distract me so that he may destroy me. So let's talk about this union. Let's go to Ephesians chapter 4. Ephesians chapter 4.
I gotta stay cool too, and know I'm not a fool. I know eventually I'm gonna have to choose. And really I don't wanna lose my ticket into heaven and a chance to be used by you. And if it's God that I'm after, I just can't serve two masters. And before something happens, I gotta turn it all around, because I know I can't just have my